Oh, there we go.
That's the Tamjaka to Tojalana Majeva Sanjay Koma Ramboche, Teenager Tovacha, Tichedo, and Betanjo Simba Labjana, Fish the Nazo, Dam Langugre, Langa Shengor, Shemala Turko, Tola Tujasu, Kodu, Tata Kazu Baba de Carsolta, Lale Sodima, Lale Sodima, and that tested what you need, yes, some check.
So let's set our motivation as per normal. Our motivation is to do whatever we possibly can to really achieve and attain a fearless state of enlightenment so that we are in that position to be best able to benefit all sentient beings. But in knowing to do that, of course, we must create all the necessary causes, and that means perfecting all the trainings on the Bodhisattva path. To perfect those trainings in turn, we must gain a good understanding of them, an education with regard to them, as a training with regard to them, an understanding based on a definitive kind of text and presentation. And so it is with this in mind to this morning that we will hear from a mind training text known as the 37 Practices of the Bodhisattva.
That did you that can get yes, some of the channel that the social give a combo over chair and the chair is a cop and the net and there is a come down yam door to yeah, we are something to what the social was cousin she gave with the combo over chair and rang it to the rang it lama imbala number and because of that chair is the budget chashi by some dana what chair is a chashi by some and that do some the Sanja Tamjaje and Ninja and it high source charge. High source charge, what it is a compassion.
And so then to begin with, and indeed to set really the pattern of these teachings, instead of the merit field that we have been generating in with regard to the quick path to omniscience, we won't need to do that this time. We will instead generate an image or a reality of Chenrezig, the Buddha of compassion, and that here, in place of that extensive kind of generation of the merit field, we will place in the space in front of us our own, in essence, our own root guru, and this time now in aspect, the four-armed version of the Buddha of compassion, who is the embodiment of all Buddhas of compassion, Chenrezig or Avalokiteshvara.
What is it? And the case of the Chashila, a chat on the noble industry, treating a chair, and then Chalamani Dilla, and because of the Casa de Tilwa, Casa de Chachiga, and because of the Pemache, Yobak Pemache, and because of the Yabaki and Shaker Tawas in tickets. Shaker Tawa. Shaker.
Yeah.
No shakers in the rock.
Yeah. And so the figure that we are visualizing. Gubar check you again.
Yeah.
I'll just show a picture. So the picture is like so. So we can see the forearms, two of which are holding a wish-fulfilling gem, a gem in the at the center of the heart, and then the other two hands invariably holding a lotus in one hand, and then a kind of a glass beaded mala in the other hand. Can you see that?
I think crystal glass.
Crystal, yeah. So I don't know if that's able to give you any benefit, any help there. So this is the image that we're using, and this is the Buddha of compassion, of course, and the embodiment of all Buddhas of compassion.
Yeah. Yeah. Raison, what is compassion? And then that the jealousy, and a caso de Takajaji. Tati jealousy, and Chiwo Jamba Tuga Honchi compassion, and Tuga Honle, and Chicaso de Takaja, we say part of member turn the single Ramjar never any Ishiba Chanta, and Delative. And the Caso Ishiba Munakora Shujan Takachi. Sanja Gazda, Shing Tamjana Yubet, to Sanja Tamjaka Tani is what Tani is what is Mabache.
So this figure that we are visualizing, the four-armed Chenrezig, is marked at the crown with an at the throat with an and at the heart with a hung. And from the hung at the heart, light rays, countless light rays emanate, going into the pure realms and inviting all of the wisdom beings from those pure realms which come and dissolve into the figure of Chenrezig. And so we really feel now we have a fully empowered Buddha in the space in front of us.
And Rangi Tago, and Rana Tincheva making a Simja Jeta, Teddy Pamane, Chiveta, and Taganish, Pame Simja, Taganish, Rangi leg on any Chicasura, Kanja, Rantone. Kill make a deal round to a kill medic at the leg, Tammy dancing and La Soba. Taka Tiger Magassim that the muscle never use some such.
Now we visualize in the space all around us all kinds of other sentient beings, beginning with our parents and relatives, those that we know, but including all sentient beings and all those categories, not just our friends that we have, that we are close to, and those who are neutral to us, but also those that due to our karma, we have a dislike towards, and they, because of their karma, have a dislike towards us. And we especially are clear to visualize all those in the space all around us as well. And we feel that all sentient beings now are included without exception.
What did I switch? And so, and because of the nigger, Swashi, and it's a Lama Jealous Lamibe, and Deva. Deva, you shake it, Deva, and what do get Deva Losoma, Tarnishing a Simjal Mibi, and Chikaso Ninja. What the data that Rusu to Nashima Kajila, and Namju Minashi, and Chicken Namju Peshutanju, and it's in a castle. Swashi Dadala, Ran is in Chen, Ran is in Chen, that Dala, and Chicken Tavetova, and what do get away, you shake it, Deva Losoma, Deva, to take a Tanya. And Chikaso Takacha was the Caso de Sechito, and the Takacha, Caso de Japchatic, what did the commercial?
And so we also see that in the within the from our point of view, our kind of attitudes towards the figure of Chenrezig is one of faith. This faith includes that pure faith, that manifest faith, and that faith of conviction. That we are also able to observe all the kind of other sentient beings all around us, also with an attitude of compassion, highly aware that even though they are or they are kind of in all the six realms of existence, but from their side also, they, although residents of all the different realms of existence, they have the kind of cognition of us, the same sort of understanding of this scenario, this situation as us ourselves, and so they also are looking at Chenrezig with an attitude of faith, for the different kinds of faith, and also that conviction that the Buddha of compassion can offer protection.
다 되게 안에 가서 다 가져 초기 신 켜버체 딜라 다 가져 미네 아니 다 가져 지금 그 검시변 안에 아니 지 가서 다 가져 심절 닌제 소신게 되달라 아니 그래서 검시변 안에 다 가져 지금 가서 다 가져 저 잡찬 검시변 안에 다 가져 지금 야라도 뭐 멘데다 저 앞인데 다 가서 로 창자와다 최제 샤와다 제수이라 꾸시서 겨와 주사다게 제사 탐자다게 자주 친구고 소원에 진짜 아니 강토도게 또다 삼로 단전 다 가져 어떤 야라도 멘데다 저 같이 어떻게 저
And so then that in viewing this much kind of more truncated version of the merit field, that ourselves and all other sentient beings are all together with that mind of faith, that mind from our point of view of compassion for all sentient beings as well, and make the offering of the 7-limb practice and the mandala offering, including, the prostration, offering, the purification, the confession and purification of negativities, the rejoicing, the requesting the Buddha to remain in cyclic existence, to stay and teach, that we dedicating all this merit as well. So the process again of using the power of the merit field to engage in activities of purification on the one hand, and then accumulation of positive merit on the other.
아니 대대가 그 야라도 멘데도 저 표현도 아니 초신게 아니 라마제레시 다 교수 산제 탐제가 다니 라마제레시 두갈 대화도 대외 동바데 대도 있으면 쉽게 소서 얻을 고마샤.
And then as a result of our earnest practice of offering the 7 limbs and the mandala, that there is this response in the figure of Chenrezig, the representing of the merit field, and indeed the embodiment of all Buddhas. Here, that some bliss arises in the mind. This invokes the emptiness, and the figure enjoys the meditation on the wisdom of non-dual bliss and voidness.
딱 이제 제레스도 아니 지금 가서 지금 산제 좀 된다 아니 로스 이마도 고마 시고 말이야 그가 단위 찍잖아 가서 산제 탐제기 아니 투제 아니 하이수스 차와치 맞아 뒤제도 하이수스 차와치 뭐다 되는 좀 고마 시고 고요 어떤 시
So of course we do not see the figure of Chenrezig as actually in any way definitively different to the Buddha. That we see that the Buddha is the one who kind of generates kind of like the aspects of the different aspects of his enlightened being. And so here is as it were generating the deity representative of compassion. So this is Chenrezig, the Buddha of compassion. No difference in essence at all. No difference in qualities or essence or reach or power and so on to the enlightened being.
이나야 당고들 학별 학된다는 지금 닝제기 아니 가서 다치다 산제 그가 누구냐 말했다 이나야 지금 잡아도 닝제기 남네 지게라야 뭐 믹스기 아니 야 제레스 삼다나야 지금 다가니 시그 셰랍이 되게 지어도 야 잡아야 삼다나 잡아야 심지 탐제기 아니 저 셰랍 산제 탐제기 셰랍 아니 하차도 인자 제가 누가 찍고 지자이다 야 갑도 야 갑도 대대기야 캐바토서 용티죠 안 대대자 다리 또 다가서제 지가서데 다가제 지가서데 자주 세면 냠내 또 제원도 야 제레스 있잖아요 갑도 코라 캐바 용티고 요리야 캐바 용티고 요리 어디는 맞다 지난 니바냐 말이야 로아 제레스데 자베 양게 닝제 하차와리 거치거치다로 셰럽을 팽그를 마베 요 말이다 이네 양고 갑도 나라도 내 당보알라 양 캄다 투막 양 캐바 주고 요와
So we kind of like here it's sort of like using really in a way skillful means that of course all Buddhas have all are equal in all the different qualities, be it the compassion, wisdom, skillful means, and so on. But that in terms of for us beginners, it's that to be useful to have a kind of a specialist in compassion in the form of Chen Rezik, for example, or a specialist in wisdom in the form of Manjushri and so on. But of course, that Manjushri's understanding and realization and indeed embodiment of compassion is indeed in no way lesser than Chen. And likewise, Chen Rezik's understanding and insight into wisdom is no weaker than Manjushri's. It's simply saying what can facilitate better kind of like generation of these qualities in us with beginner minds. And so we have the figure of Chen Rezik here because, of course, this whole text is emphasizing the development of bodhicitta, which in turn depends on the generation of compassion. And so this is kind of convenient for our particular means here. But to understand that in visualizing Chen Rezik, we're visualizing a figure, a deity, it's kind of like the aspect of this compassion, but it's embodying all the qualities of an enlightened being equally.
아니 다 가서 막 소신을 쉬고는 다 소신 야주 제게요 말 가서나 소신 딱 가서 군대 노블룩 승차도 지가지와 다들 이마 있어 다 랑게 지고라 다 저기 가서도 배만님만 다외 된지 삼로다 뒤 가서도 년조 당세 양대배 다와 춘제소로체 대지 미과체 아니 뒤 때도 아니 반대 자외 라마를 뭐지 다기 지워 빼면 까지 저 구스도구를 자도 소도대 자월 다음에 답을 가서 배 예배 가서 슈 수배가서 때도 주는 산재에 고만 마도 봐도다 라마제레스게 제수소수 삼자체.
And so here we don't need to go through the dissolution of the merit field as before, because we simply have visualized the one central figure who's the embodiment of all refuge and all Buddhas, the central figure of Chen Rezik. And so we go straight to that point of inviting the figure to come to our crowns. And again, we set up a mandala seat of lotus, sun, and moon disk on our crown. Again, you will recall how we generate the lotus from our contemplation of renunciation, how the sun disk arises from our contemplation of emptiness, and the moon disk from our contemplation of the bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment. And so it is then with the invocation verse, so glorious and precious Guru, come take your lotus and moon seat on my crown, keep me safe in your kindness, and bestow on me the attainments of body, speech, and mind. Reciting this 3 times. After the first time, the replica body comes towards our crown. With the second, the body then seats itself on our crown. And with the third, we have the figure of Buddha, the Buddha of compassion, Chen Rezik, with us until we attain the state of enlightenment.
What is it? And then what is compassion? What is it? Then I thought that you that what is it? Any that rank you want to try that Sanjay Komamato, but the so and check that Canada, Tonada, what it is. So
that in coming to kind of the recognition that we have the embodiment of compassion, Chen Rezik, with us right now on our crown, is going to remain there until we ourselves attain enlightenment. That sort of automatically generates this tremendous sense of the confidence and joy and rejoicing and enthusiasm and inspiration in our minds.
What is it? That in that because of the what is it? That and the jealousy Tugala and because of the directing watch and the logic of the thing about Yalan ticket. And the Tagola or money payment and tongue ticket.
So the at the heart of the figure of Chen Rezik arises a white single-pronged Vajra.
Yeah,
sorry. A moon disc. On the moon disc, the heart of Chenrezig, rises a single-pointed Vajra, an upright Vajra, and that this surrounding it then is the mantra of Chenrezig, Om Mani Padme Hum, going in a clockwise direction.
What did the Samta? And Rangi Junga Ibaina, Janju Semji Com, and Janju Sem Comne, and the Janju Sem Com Yogi, Semja Tamje to Sanja Koma Topping, Single Logic Comne, and then Tamatana Tam, then you are the Toba Chicken, so some stuff, and it did. Because of the Tawik, Ningal, Tawik, watching a Jusu, some such. And the Tagani Shingi, because of the that the Toba Chicken, and say, not say, journey. Sem get la che lu get la che chuna ta ka le sem ni de te se do nga ma ni ba ta ra ka la sem to sha ane de nga ma ni ba ka cha ka sam nge be lo ta ra an ta ka ba ko to chi ka ba sem nga ba chi la ju so sam sa cha de li 이게 홍게 참바 유견치 어디래치 삼다 ane de ta go to o ma ni pe ma ho nga khwa ti chi yo so 어디래 삼다나
So next, then we meditate, trying to focus on this single-pronged white Vajra with the mantra surrounding on the moon disc, single-pointedly and at the same time generating this mind of enlightenment, this aspiration to really do whatever I possibly can to quickly attain the state of enlightenment so that I can best be able to benefit sentient beings. And then once kind of generating that, we contemplate on this mention of me, I, wanting to do this I, this person, this self, where is this self to be found? And we look into doing the meditation on emptiness, looking into the body and mind, looking for this objectively existent I, and then getting to the point again of in the analysis of not finding this mere not finding the object of negation, and trying then to single-pointedly focus on this. And here then we focus on the mere vacuity of not finding it, and then arising out of that vacuity is now the same single-pronged Vajra upright on the moon disc with the mantra surrounding it, but now marked by the syllable Hum also.
Ordinary compassion. Ordinary compassion, ordinary channel. And it that so the money done it again by Nani, and it then or money payment or cheres rala me, and it then Tuga Huntil. Because Tugal Tower to just send over to Omani Pemo, Tarami, and then we say part of Mebatron Rangi Ingal Omani Pemo, Comtera, and then Tawata, Tojita, Jeres Tuga Tawata, Tojita, Omani Pema home, to get the car, and part of Mebatron, Rangi Ningala Pemata, and because of the Kota Tawata, Toji, and Omani Pema home quarter, and part of Meba. Distribution Martin Tim Samsacher, Omani Pemo, this time again, Yawashi. What is it?
And it was a Dawa Nidu, Dawa the because of the Chenrezig in the Yaso Togala,
that Jeres Toga Tawata, Tojita, Omani Pemo, and part of Meba 20. We say part of Meba 20, Rangi, Tawata, and Nikaso de Tojita. Dojila Hungi Sambata, and all money pematic part of Meba, turning and Rangi, Tugala, Tawa Doji, and all money pemolma, dissolution till about singular till function. And also the increased Jeffsata, Jajuga Semre, and Casodeta, Tony Tower, to get my give a key, only going to pay some such an.
And Doji Day, say chick. Okay, sorry, I need to make a quick correction before we go on. That in the visualization that I've described, I talked about a single-pronged Vajra. It's actually a 5-pronged Vajra that needs to be visualized. So now, so you have this 5-pronged Vajra sitting on a white moon disk, surrounded by the Om Mani Padme Hum mantra going in a clockwise direction. Now that's at the heart center of the figure of Chenrezig, and that we now also have a replica of that same visualization at our own heart center, the white moon disk, on which is the white 5-pronged Vajra surrounded by the Om Mani Padme Hum mantra. And as we meditate on this, and as we recite the Om Mani Padme Hum mantra ourselves, this starts to kind of induce the rays of light streaming from the Hum at the center of marking the 5-pronged Vajra at the heart center of Chenrezig, and that the light then streams out of that Hum and Vajra combination and dissolves into our Hum and mantra combination at our own hearts. So the kind of like the mantra recitation is the one that facilitates the this streaming of light, and that we feel, and that this really fills up our heart center, and indeed increases in strength and volume as it enters into the Hum and Vajra combination and at our own heart center. And that's the kind of like qualities of not just compassion and the mind of enlightenment of this, but also our understanding and insight into emptiness and the other qualities of the path also increase.
What did then Rangi, and Chivola, Lama Cheres, Commission Tata was a cause of a shade and it gets it. That Lalo Sotimashu, what is the Tesha to Station? Was it Namle Jack, we was at the edge of Miquaji, Society, any idea Tesha Chicta, can't do also Jayache, what is the chat, and Tipa Namle Pacha, what is the Chetula, Yabu Santa Teswa, what is the chat? No, that Cheres is done. And Lama Cheres Commission and Tap and Jetching. So that Dinamle, Lama Cheres to come out to be is Gorata. That teacher what is that Gyelse Tokme is the Papa Thomas Yomarita, gave says Yomar Gyelse Thomas the Chanju Samasura Tati Kalan, because of the Tatu Bug Kavachi, Bug in the Bachit, Takajatic, take up and Chulus, Bug, and then Chulus so much about and oh, take up can get all the Chanju Samarita, Takaja, say to get and words as a sort of chat here, Gyelse. Gyelse is the Chanju Sama, Sigurva Chanju Samasa, and the Kongeta Kanjaji Lana Sotimata gets a Tomet, gets Zelota Lana Sotimas, what that they call it Tiship to Chagache. Same when the Tudum Sambon Sigmund, same when the Yaputemaso, Peter Tudum Sambon say, what did the chief say? Takanja, what that Gyelse as a Tomet, some did say, Takaja. Then Tango de la Namo, Namo our location, Namo our location as a Namos and a chat, our location is a Genesis, Yorba, Genesis, a chat, what it is, what Takacha. What is it?
It's said the kind of Mutu Gyelse Tokme Zangpo.
Oh, Mutu Gyelse Tokme Zangpo.
So what we have, what Ken has just explained here is a very, very useful, very kind of a really almost essential preliminary, really, when we're actually engaging in the practice of the generation of compassion and the mind of enlightenment here, and especially in the context of this text, because this is the import of this the 37 practices of a Bodhisattva. And so this generation of the merit field as described with the central figure of Chenrezig, our own root guru, an aspect, the Buddha of compassion, and then that exchange from the light rays coming from the heart center of Chenrezig to our own heart center, and really are identifying with that compassion, that mind of enlightenment, filling our own heart center, and really gaining the inspiration for our own practice. And so this is kind of very much recommended in context of our practice that has been described here. So we're looking at this text known as the 37 Practices of the Bodhisattva. This is one of the most popular and well-known mind training texts in Tibet, and it was the author is described as the child of the conqueror, Bodhisattva, in other words. His name is Tokme Zangpo, and that Tokme Zangpo is regarded indeed almost like more than anybody else by all four major schools of Tibetan Buddhism as a genuine Bodhisattva. And so he gets this kind of then title, Gyelse, or Child of the Conqueror. And so he is the author of this particular text.
我觉得这大概呢，这大当不得了，告诉的这告诉的后边他了去吧，但后边他了去吧呢，这个中国把这些当，他这里去吧，一般的中国把这些当，他中国他去吧，中的，这他一个什么叫了很多用的，这里去都，有去吧叫去吧就用个用的，他，这里是那么我逻辑些的，告诉了，他我逻辑些的，这件事情是，这件事了差些老死。 我这些，当然这些那么我那个些是他的，其他不要开吧，在嘛的，在因为Sanskrit的，他这Sanskrit 这个比较大一点，他这个三节大概就是改了八节差一些，Sanskrit 改了八下差一档，八下差一档，当然这些，这个他本来改吧的三节段这个，配一个，全国过一个，大概就其他的巴黎改的等等的书个有的，因为呀，他就告诉的，大概就300人把这个的忙起的，告诉听那送过来，可是Sanskrit改了书个有个意思，等等改了八下，就会开吧，这书个有啥的，我真的这八下觉得有改了几粒就会他，等等忙不就开吧有个啥，我真的这，
And so the very first words of the text then. As we have in the translation, it says homage to Lokeshvara, and that here Lokeshvara, of course, is Avalokiteshvara, Chenrezig, the Buddha of compassion, the one that we have been visualizing, and that here it's a sort of like a salutation. It's also a paying of homage, as it says there, in order to really invoke the help of Avalokiteshvara to kind of avoid any obstacles, particularly in the composition of this particular text, and also to be able to kind of be empowered to for it to be able to benefit countless sentient beings. And that here the wording is important. The word Lokeshvara is actually Sanskrit, the Sanskrit name of Chenrezig, the Buddha of compassion, and it's used deliberately here to kind of create the imprint in the mind to be able to study and become proficient in the language Sanskrit, because this is said to be extremely auspicious, especially for the coming of all the other Buddhas of this generation. It said that there are going to be 1,000 Buddhas in this fortunate generation, and that Shakyamuni Buddha being the fourth. So there are all the other Buddhas then are said to kind of like give the turning of the wheel of Dharma when they come through the medium of Sanskrit. Of course, there will be, Pali as well, but mainly that he will teach through Sanskrit. So it's a very good imprint to have on the mind.
我的这，他的呢，我的这，他呢，他刚给全国中没事讲啥，周围做的这个准则吧，那么传达，现在这个老是那么传达，现在这个了，大多各种区别，差才落实。
And so this first verse then is the initial salutation, continuing on from the first line. And I'm reading from the text, I pay constant homage to my three doors, to my supreme teacher and protector, Chenrezig, who, while seeing all phenomena lack coming and going, makes single-minded effort for the good of living beings.
他感觉这他的这个说的他他感觉缺关，他感觉他这个，如他感觉缺关，他其他个缺跟的钱吧也那样，其他个缺跟的钱吧也那样，他感觉这个有点呢，他就吧就咱没跟钱，那有点呢，那中了说吧，中到我了说吧，这那边没法写这个。但是中没法习惯的，没法习惯的，切到了马路上去呢，切到了，没法了马路上去呢，就告诉的，告诉的，他们就告诉了，告诉的，马路上去呢，周围对，主要是这他们这个对，他这吧，这个三界恐怕周围切多，他这严重长色养代表大哇，啥就拉不了说嘛。对把这个，让娘子那呢，对把这个给阿妈教堂，他就是三界谈这个，大概就阿妈教堂，接着是过了，大度，说他大度，他感觉这三界恐怕没多个把多，规边差这个意思，是吧？我来讲呢，他对这呢，满你的他没把人下手了，但是他把他们这根本来别嘴马接他。说他这个没把人下切到了马路上去，他我有个那种的你把他，我有个那种时间给，那么叫他接着是了，各种规备，大多，告诉规备差这个意思是什么？是这说。
没上根。
不是，他的告诉呢，这个短大把的工作边那种，短大边那种希望的有点的说吧，有什么没吧？看呢，谁这个，工作都，这个说的，去他们家，专门把下图给看，下图啊嘛是，他把他们家看那个，搞嘛的，专门让给捏吧的呢，先了，告诉的，这边过来带了把图给看，那么叫他接着是了，告诉，后面大多差这老是个事的，
So this verse then, indeed, is speaking as well as on, of course, the generation of compassion, but also touching on the doctrine of emptiness itself. So I pay constant homage through my three doors to my supreme teacher and protector Chenrezig, who, while seeing all phenomena, lack coming and going. And so this phenomena lacking coming and going is speaking with regard to there being no objective existence of phenomena lacking even a minute atomical level of existence. They do not inherently come or inherently go. That this is indeed speaking to the avoiding of the extremes of either nihilism or eternalism as well. That phenomena, all phenomena, in lacking any objective coming or going, are therefore dependent phenomena. They arise independence. And then in seeing that, Chenrezig understands intimately that because phenomena lack any objective or independent existence, but rather they are arising independence, it facilitates, it allows, it makes possible the generation of the mind of enlightenment, the generation of all the causes to attain that state of enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And so the Chenrezig, while seeing all phenomena lack coming and going, can then make single-minded effort for the good of living beings. And so it's saying this is, speaking to both conventional and ultimate wisdom, and saying that because phenomena lack any objective or inherent existence, they therefore arise in dependence. So they're being determined to not have any objective or independent existence validates their dependent way of existing. They're arising in and functioning as a dependent phenomena. This kind of like says that this makes everything possible, and therefore one can, as Chenrezig does, work single-pointedly for the benefit of all living beings. And so this process of following the path and generating the causes related to generation of renunciation, of bodhicitta, of the correct view of emptiness, and so on, and to the particular causes related to the tantric paths, etc. This is all validated because of this understanding of the difference between conventional and ultimate reality.
친한게 또배 개발되는 동구문도 친한게 또배 개발되는 동구도 친한게 또배 개발돼야 되는 동구도 다 룩딜에 셴베 아니 저거다 룩다 나라도 룩딜에 상게 좀 되게 룩딜에 셴베 아니 저거 룩딜 쪽에 라신게 좀 마샤나 아니 코데게 남자 되게 요 말이야 코데게 남자 다 라신게 라신 또 마주바이나 아니 예 군도 비샤신게 매바 인자 어때다 다 단다데 라신도 매바 이나 양 매바 이나 양 군도 그 남자데 다 가자 저 가서 리베 권에 텔라 밥두고 열봐 리베 권에 텔라 밥두고 열봐 다 what is 텔라 밥두고 매제 아니 다 가자 다 그래 다 리베 권에 텔라 밥두고 열봐 what are they the 개발제 도구 와 what the 도구 또
So again, it's just clarifying that seeing all phenomena, and this can refer to all phenomena as kind of like all internal or external phenomena. So it's really, all phenomena really without exception. So this establishing of all phenomena as having lacking any ultimate existence, but that very lack of any ultimate existence infers then the validation of their having this conventional existence, and that allows for everything therefore to function. It's kind of saying this is an essential kind of point to understand, because if phenomena in any way kind of like objectively or ultimately existing, then this invalidates all of cyclic existence and nirvana. Any kind of presentation there, it cannot be validated. It cannot even kind of like be presented in any authentic way. And so it's kind of like that which underpins the whole path is that, because of this lack of objective existence, it then infers and validates that which arises independence, the conventional understanding of arising independence, and that validates everything from there on in. And so it's kind of saying this is what we need to ascertain for ourselves. This is the point of view from which Chenrezig operates. And so we need to actually emulate that and ascertain this understanding for ourselves.
是大概这个是的中的写说了，大概的南瓜的先别给，南瓜的先别给，中的当南瓜的先当，南瓜你开发的比较欠不多，大都中嘛的，或者大都嘛中呢，买中就是个样吧，大都嘛中吧，一那样，个是这个工作被缺下头，工作被缺，他不打过的下头个人，下头嘛在大都嘛中吧一张。And
so there's also an issue regarding to the tenet presentations within the Buddhist fold, and so that there are other Buddhist traditions, schools, where they hold that if their self cannot be established, truly established, that they must then conclude that the non-existence of self. And so here, from this point of view, saying that is not the case. That is a misunderstanding. That in fact, the lack of true existence of the self validates, in kind of like shows that on the other hand, the self arises in dependence. It is and it kind of like says that it's not just kind of conventionally existent, but it is a much more validated notion of conventional existence, because one has, as it were, refuted its true existence or its objective existence.
或者是他做的大约观念把点呢，这样的话也不是不多，我觉得是他确保这个确保咱们这个看看，大话的对打嘛，大个都能确保咱们对打的确保不了，讲确保咱们对打嘛，大咱三六确保，这大话的了点呢，确保咱们就用过去了，大话的确保一个，就是大话的。 对打不打，这个日本带了就怕毛多呢，确保这个点对打不打，日本带了怕对买这个车了，我但这个教是这么讲这个。
So it's also making the point here that in many ways the quality of our behavior, our actual actions, our practice in a way, is very much dependent on the quality of our understanding of the view and the reasoning behind that understanding, saying that really that reasoning with regard to the view of reality is really that which informs the quality of our behavior and our practice thereafter. So it's kind of like an essential quality for engaging in kind of any side on the method side of the path as well.
你把这个偏在中呢，左边三件能是，偏到台湾中呢，左边三件能，咱们就中了中的这样呢，这也哪里写了哪里边，解释呢的哪里写不强势。
The next verse is known as the pledge to compose, and it goes, perfect Buddhas, source of all well-being and happiness, arise from accomplishing the excellent teachings. And this depends on knowing the practices. So I will explain the practices of Bodhisattvas.
是，他的三界是的，当官的三界嘛，一把就举了点的用过真不多，三界嘛，一把当官的三界嘛，一把这，举了点的，他就做的开始呢，这个了。 三界个人有个意思，他三界忽然当具体的具备什么样经过的话，他三界是当官的三界嘛，就忽然当具体的具备，忽然叫我嘛，具体的具备， semi ju jing du jiba semje ju mu wa da semje de la sanje ri yo ba yin sa sanje ri me na sanje tu tu ba wa de ne yima yin sa sanje ri yo da pende ju ne zo be sanje di dang bu na sanje ja ma res kare de na jiwa sa hora la sanje ri yo ba che ene ri ki se to ane tambe che tu be tubale tabe chue nyamsu lane ane chungwa res chungte ta dede chungwa za de yang dede yima za de la le sheba ta dede go chungta de gende chungko go to ane la to landan de gori macho wa mano wa chasang wa chi ane sheba che go res ro ekaze sheba la ra le de dede yeza kese nam jesa ta chanju sebe lam lam gen soge la le du sheba ge chemo res sheba chas
So perfect Buddhas, source of all well-being and happiness, arise from accomplishing the excellent teachings. And so this is pointing out to the fact that the Buddhas, of course, don't come into this world as fully enlightened beings. In fact, that the Buddhas must initially start off like ourselves, people dominated by karma and mental afflictions. But they create the causes to attain that state of enlightenment. And the main cause that is extant in any person aspiring to Buddhahood is Buddha nature. They have this quintessential potential that is there, unfulfilled at the moment, but can then be developed to its complete perfection, which is Buddhahood. And so it's the Buddha having recognized this much and engaging in the practices that he created the causes to be able to attain a state of enlightenment. And it's initially on the back of kind of that initial inspiration that he came to understand, he studied and came to understand perfectly what needed to be taken up in terms of practice, what needs to be abandoned in terms of mental affliction, and that sort of mind training approach based on knowledge is what laid down the causes for the Buddha to become the enlightened being. And so this is the kind of like all bodhisattvas then, who all those who aspire to that state of bodhisattva must recognize that state itself is based on the development of the correct causes to bring about that result. And that result must be in harmony with the causes. So therefore, all practitioners then must gain an understanding of the path of enlightenment, the path to the state of a bodhisattva, and they must gain an understanding of that, and then they must put that understanding into practice.
Sanje sire tangbuna and the sanje get target jima in any garadu sanje to the lamtema in a proof scale marwa. Proof scale marta, Koran Yama Sama gave a cup to Yobache. Garas Nashi in the cup to Yobache. And the neck cup chigla and it Kasula Taka and it Tajiga Kasula Taji Yomo Maba Soyaki and watch train and Yomo Maba Soyne, Ranches Tazi Mariko Maba Sone, Tar and Saju Lamna Lab the Sanje Komatos, oh, for a proof Chadeva. And it is all that to the chairs. Dimana for a Tanguna Sanje Savina and the Sanje, yours Kazel Lava in a Lamtema in a Kopuru Kayo Marma. So Tango. Ngarazu nashi imbache ane dene ane chikaso de ngotwe de koye tsawa dazi marika ngotwe di nyebo dame tobe shira imba ngotwe ne nyamsula ane daga nishenge ta nyamsula ne di nyomu mewa sotu kurde ine sheje tibate mewa sotu mewa isa sheje tibate ane dende ke toni tobe shira dila shira de chanchu ke sembe simbe toni tobe shira konde ane sheje ke nyebo chetrote oho Sanje Komas, the rest of the and what you would want. Running your new data. What you would want. What I did, what did 그래서 다음에 또 코에 자와 코와 코당 그래 코즈 다음에 다도 그거디 코고요라 다 이제 코와 코에 매워 서도네 산제 고마 그래 타고도서 오다 코와 코에 단지 머리 베지 디녀 다음에 또 베셔 다 다음에 또 베셔라 곰나 아니 탐지 좀 또고도 말이야 탐지 좀 또 말아 다음에 또 베셔라지 장주가 생겼어 맞지고도 장주가 생겼어 맞지나 아니 년지 뭐고 시집 양방 두고도 시집 방도나 산제 고마 톱도로 어떻게 되냐 민들의 송구도
So this understanding that the Buddha began as an ordinary being like you and me is a very, very important point to understand, because the Buddha had to kind of really struggle in the same way to come to know the mind, to come to know what the causes that needed to be established and those that need to be abandoned, to study, learn the path, to practice what was understood in order then ultimately and eventually to attain that state of enlightenment. Because it's only by actually traveling the path in that way, of going through every stage of development like that, that the Buddha then can teach with assurance, and we can have faith in what is being said. It's kind of like he has the proof of what needs to be done because he has gained that through his own personal experience. If the Buddha had come fully enlightened from the very beginning and then started to present the path, it wouldn't hold the same sense of authenticity because we had no proof of that it was actually accomplished by the person who is telling us the path or showing us the path. And so it's kind of very important aspect of it that when we hear a teaching attributed to the Buddha, we are hearing something that is explained based on personal experience, that they have come to gain conviction with regard to what they are talking about, because the proof is that they have realized what they are teaching. And so this is a very, very important, very important to understand that we too then have that same capacity, and that the Buddha kind of like was able to look into the state of cyclic existence, to recognize what the root cause of cyclic existence was, that self-grasping self, and to propose the wisdom realizing emptiness as the perfect antidote to that. He was able to recognize that, in order to overcome the obscurations, the afflicted obscurations, one had to realize this emptiness, and to kind of see through the falseness of the way that of phenomena appear to us. But then also understood that in order to overcome the obscurations to omniscience, he had to kind of tackle those obscurations through a combination of the mind of enlightenment with that understanding or realization of emptiness as well. And in overcoming those, he could then attain that pinnacle of the state of enlightenment itself. And so all of this is very, very important to that we are given, say, on the basis of all that experience gained by the Buddha, a thorough kind of presentation of how one cycles in cyclic existence, how that kind of process continues on ad nauseum, and because of that root cause not being addressed, that's grasping at the true existence of a self entity, and then not only that, but presents the way out, the perfect antidote, that wisdom realizing selflessness, to be able to do that. So all of this is something that the Buddha is speaking from his own personal experience. And we have to understand that point. And so with that second verse, in speaking that, and this depends on knowing the practices. So I will explain the practices of a bodhisattva. And so it's kind of like also, in emulating or in following the Buddha's example, therefore, I will explain these practices of the Bodhisattva, because, of course, that is one of the essential components of being able to attain that state, or laying down the causes to attain that state of enlightenment. And so now we reach the text proper, and the first of the kind of like the 37 practices of the Bodhisattva reads as follows: having gained this rare ship of freedom and fortune, hear, think, and meditate unwaveringly night and day, in order to free yourself and others from the ocean of cyclic existence. This is the practice of bodhisattvas. So this first verse is a powerful kind of exhortation based on having, the great advantage of having attained a precious human rebirth of these beneficial circumstances and leisures, and that we've heard of these 8 leisures and 10 kind of like beneficial circumstances or endowments based on the graduated path teachings, and it's kind of like saying again to really recognize the extraordinary advantage that this gives us, especially in terms of the goal that we are seeking to attain that state of enlightenment for the benefit of all. And that, in terms of comparison with other human beings who may have, seemingly a good life, they are kind of kind-hearted, but they don't have that full set of the special circumstances or the beneficial circumstances and the freedoms, and therefore they don't have the same vigor or the same compulsion even to engage in a path to lay down the causes for such a noble kind of objective. And that this is important, that saying, because you are in this extraordinary position, therefore, to take it very, very seriously, and to kind of say, do not dilly-dally, do not waste time, and that to kind of like really understand that this is a very difficult set of circumstances to get, as it says in the text, having gained this rare ship of freedom and fortune. And so it's describing this life as a boat or a ship that would carry us. But it's a very, very fragile ship. It can easily be sunk, as it were. In other words, that body is fragile. And it also is a body that doesn't last long. We haven't got endless time, and that we are reminded about this because death is, as we know, definite, but the time of death is indefinite. We don't know when it's going to come, and that at the time of death, only our spiritual practice will stand to us, will be of benefit to us. And saying is here that on the one hand, you have this wonderful set of beneficial circumstances. You, on the other hand, are up against it in terms of time. There isn't that much time to do much. So you have to put everything into it. And so it's kind of saying here that we don't waste time. We need to gain the wisdom from learning, from contemplation, from meditation. We put our kind of everything we have into it, and kind of saying we have to find out, like, to enhance that which we understand thus far. We need to eradicate the misunderstanding that we still have, and really then day and night, as it says here, unwaveringly meditate and listen and reflect. So this here, think and meditate, of course, is this learning, really, studying and contemplating and meditating, the three kind of approaches to the full assimilation of Dharma teachings, and that it must be done in combination.
먼저 때다 라가 삼마다는데 라게 지금 타고도 유배게 아니 지금 칠레 유배게 조고 조물러서 왔다 비비자라서 왔다 다가는 생각 제가서도 다 밤에 섬제다 되게 강갈 지금 아니 지금 저와 야고 매겠는데 강갈을 뛰었다 이제 뛰었다 다 반제 지금 이제 정가라도 지금 라라 집에 대조지 아니 지금 소수게 제마의 시신게 심네 안 배주 딱딱이 딱 맞도 봐이나 가도 이네 아니 지금 가서도 다 간자 지금 대적을 유대 님불래라 발제 유대는 있어. 디기 연에 먼저 발제 정도도 동해 연에 발제 정도도 아니 디 다 말아도 동해 다 디기 얘기 게 아니 디 군이게 아니 지금 가서다 제발로네 다 제발로네 아니 뭐들 지금 뒤주 돌아 다시 용 되기도 와. 다 중에 용거래 디게 용거래 라도 렉가 디가 소소기 레사네 레사고 사바제 요네 냠바 사바제 요네 다 근데 이마 인사 단단 가서 코아날 게데 아니 지금 가서 코에게 디기 가서 레사고 사바제 요네 코에게 아니 가서 렉냠바 사바제 용거 요네 디니라 때네 다 kiến的 错的 아니 대도 나도 지용거라 다 근데 제가 먼저 지금 뒤게 근데 제가 아니 고판에 랑게 지금 단적을 리때 님불 여봐도 뭐 맞죠 봤잖니 아니 님불에 여봐되게 아니 가서다 딱 잼바다 시생게 맞죠 봐 이나 아니 가도 이봐 이네 아니 먼저 지금 가서다 다 뒤주 돌아다야지 예되게 차리도 와 되면 좀 뭐쳐 봐 제게 전부도 와
So that, we are, as we are well aware, kind of stuck in cyclic existence. And so we have as a kind of normal being, we have those who regard us as friends, those who regard us neutral to us, those who regard us unfriendly. And that feeling is mutual. Now, if we compare the kind of like our relationship to basically any kind of selection of beings that we are in connection with or involved with, we can see that when it comes to extracting the essence of our precious human rebirth of these kind of beneficial circumstances and freedoms, that any interaction that we have with friends, enemy, neutral, can act to either support that essence, that taking of the essence, or it can be an obstacle to our being able to take the essence of our precious human rebirth. And this is something that we need to keep in mind constantly, that, when we are in cyclic existence, we have to automatically assume that there will be suffering and there will be moments of happiness. And that we have these karmas on our mind stream that once they meet with the condition, they're going to ripen into that particular result. Some of that will be suffering, some of that will be happiness. And that here, we, in becoming highly aware of how kind of our life revolves like that, and all our lives in cyclic existence revolve like that, we kind of gain a bigger picture of, how the kind of stuff of our life plays out if we are operating without the requisite mindfulness and alertness to keep our eye on the prize, as it were, our eye on the quintessential importance of taking the essence from this precious human rebirth of these, beneficial circumstances and freedoms. And so this is something that we, in all our relations, must keep in mind, that regardless of who we are interacting with and how that interaction is, that we need to become skillful at making sure that that is going to be an advantage to our taking the essence of this precious human life, of this great opportunity, and it's never going to act as an obstacle to that.
다른 생각 먼저 타바다 탐색 정말 두개서 근데 뭐요게 내서 쉐드 게요 치버래 뭐요게 내서 쉐마 마시 마이나 아니 뭔가 무슨 용되거라 뭐요게 내서 쉐네 나 동네지 좋아도 딱 가시는 가라 연구여서 삼삼 맞아 연구를 와가 포함하러 와 디마 인상 예 낭줄로도 지리 여러 와 디마 인상 예 코안에 타야지도 몰람 자기도 와 디마 인상 예 심제 탐제도 산제 고마 두개 쓰기도 와 가르치는 시고라서 코아데 동해그라지 임바 인상 아니 디 임바 인상 게 지거 동해 연구를 와서 켈레의 게치 뭐 나는 동해 연구도 서를 많이 봐서 소소지 가서라 네가 대화체다 디방에 가사 입에서 나는 동해 연구를 미세 봤잖아 당보잖아 고왔던 거 여봐 동해 연구를 동해 공부를 와 동해 내를 대대요 아니 당연히 이제 가서라 아니 가서라 딱가제 나라도 계왔다 시왔다 네가 나와요 말이야 가서나 나라도 레뇽의 생활제인 바 인상 아니 레뇽의 생활자 레는 딱가제 다 시고지가 레레게 제부 뇨네 pen 찾아다는 거서 미 르덴게 아니 날 겨왕가 맞지 미 르덴 레게 아니 저 수점 송 아니 대대전에 딱가제 볼람 잡전에 저소 파지 도와제 밀런 도와면 참전에 먼저 대적을 르덴 대대시려 이내 이 링을 될 니마 추주레레네 레사도 먹고 사기도 와 살도 마와 사야 되가 가래 신나서 녀모베 상황 좀 레장자도 와 야와지 좋아이나 귤무샤 되기면 도 람다 미겨를 주주도 와 안데 토마 메바니 열봤다 안데 저 레페 시고지 다가저 방수나시 열봤다 타이 자주나시 시고 자주고 추나 시절에 빼 메시 배고 시고지 나한테 망치는 녀바리 안데 뒤인자 그때 상고지 여바네 상고지 그가 머리 뺏고 내라는데 되게 임바에서 저부 동네 요거부터 대화 요거 말해 다들 임바에서 다들 깨져 채워도 아니 저거 내가 그 대도 나서도 용 되기도 와 다들 요거 봐도 켈레 왜 여기 내주 신발도는 켈레 제일 개쳐 보러 와 요거래 나 봐봐로 왔어 먼저 케 말레 받아 마이키 받아 되기도 와. 케 말레다 마이키 받아 되기 여 봐. 뒤 뒤에 쇼 돌아던 것도 와. 뒤 너무 먹고 끼기도 와.
So for those who are aspiring to attain the state of liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment, it's extremely important. In fact, it's absolutely essential that one comes to understand the reality of one's situation. And one's situation is in cyclic existence now. Therefore, one must understand what can and cannot be expected from a life in cyclic existence. And that this means that when suffering arises, it's rather than the common cry of why me, why me. We need to really ask why not me. I'm in cyclic existence. All the causes and conditions are there on my mind stream, and the conditions are multiple when they meet. That it will result in a suffering result. And so therefore, I should never act surprised when suffering arises because I'm in cyclic existence. It's in the nature of suffering. So this is very, very important, very, very important that, when we make prayers to be free from cyclic existence, prayers to attain the state of omniscience and enlightenment to benefit all sentient beings, we are doing so because we already know, even at that sort of subtle level, that we are in a reality that is marked by and in the nature of the suffering. And so therefore, what is the proper response to suffering that arises for us? The proper response is acceptance of that understanding, of that suffering, with that broad understanding. That's very, very important. And that's so we know that we are here in cyclic existence. We know we are this suffering aggregates of body that's prone, that's built to suffer in a way. That we go through the process of birth, the old age, the sickness, the death, all suffering, all kind of like revolving around from time and time again. And this is all due to what? Due to our being born into this existence under in a powerless state. We are thrown into this kind of life under the power of karma and mental afflictions. And so this is what we have to deal with. And so here we can, we can never feel hard done by or surprised by a suffering result ripening for us, because we have laid down the causes due to karma and the mental afflictions for all of this. And indeed, if you look at the way our mind works, every single moment we are collecting multiple karmas all the time on our mind stream. And most of those are kind of due to the influence, under the influence of karma and the mental afflictions. You can actually conclude that most are negative karmas. And even when we engage in a virtue, we can see how difficult it is to sustain a virtuous mind, and indeed to follow through, to get that virtuous action done and dedicated and so on. It's hard going. And so we can see that, we are in a very dodgy sort of situation under the power, and that we need to understand that, the conditions are out there, and if they're met with, then suffering will result for us. And so there's no sense in being unhappy about it. The only sensible attitude is to try to accept that suffering with as much grace as we can muster, and with the kind of this broad understanding of reality underpinning that acceptance.
我这里讲，大概这个东岸情况的，咱们讲这个跨把一把的我吹呀，俺那地了的呢，他来刚才来米这把的米这把，这把去米稍微过了上了当然，他啥差不多用个的，他的用的也不中是啥子，但这个东岸的严肃了用了，俺那看这个确准备推荐了，别去当多个嘛的话，当然俺米路呢，今年的感觉个路的呢，南边个缺多起码的了，但那俺。但这个东岸的确准备推荐了别去当多个多，这个给我上过印象上，我这里讲了，大的他的用的也不中说上上，大家男性个，大毛把的，这个啥就没多，这个啥呢？东岸用过多，这个啥就没多上上不一样，这我这里接的，我这里讲的，大家这个确准备推荐了做对，这里也个就上不当然了。等待东岸的，他也别时间闲了嘛，就是俺那用的也不喜欢中说上上。然后这些嘛个时间闲了嘛，用这俺那用的他也不喜欢做啥，等待东岸的闲了用的大概就闲个用的这个么多，然后用的都挺下上上。我等这个就告诉的，就改善个咱们上路等待当对呀。对了，等待大概就时间闲个来你把顶那些啥小，他也把时间交的，这个刚刚个来你把等俺那考说。俺那明白说，也得过去吧说，上次我的那个上了当多完了，大概这段时间呢，俺们去告诉的，没基本真的，马个我真带不来，这段时间多吧，伊那，俺们改这个做完了作业，让个那个东岸的，俺们写作业，可是呢，东岸是上了当个出来用个有没印象，说是开马来把的呢用个有啥，开来些呢，俺们东岸的。在咱们刚刚开要嘛的，什么马基巴刚开的要嘛的，马基巴刚开没把可是，俺的过去说一个种族是什么定的西的要的，地基要的，用过的话我这里讲，当然那些在我的中华一般的我这里是，对，结尾这不的，俺的给我的木头的啥都上上去，俺的大个结尾这不的，后来地基给的下，大的他把他们这边地基就了我接。我的那些，听那些，甚至他也马个甚至他们家来听那些，永远的，第二他把他们这边这个永远我去，我感觉确实被春节了，别就当做一呢，这件上过去下不是吧？可是呢，东岸让了另一个东岸当地基科学地基的，告诉的，给我了别就当做要忙不多啊。他说没给我了别就当那没给就中的，给我了别就当做那给就中错的话，他的我那种没钱，真的没那么就要么在给就了别就当做嘛，钱嘛一呢，他给这个就把它中了。
So, this understanding, on the one hand, that we are in cyclic existence, and cyclic existence is in the nature of suffering. Therefore, suffering is going to be inevitable. We are going to have to meet with suffering, and we're going to have to deal with that suffering. And this goes without saying. So therefore, it's how we deal with indeed all the experience of cyclic existence is the kind of like how to say the turning point of whether we are going to remain in the constant revolution of life after life in cyclic existence, or whether we're able to direct our actions to lay down causes to attain that state of enlightenment by engaging in actions that are in harmony with the Bodhisattva idea, the whole point of this text. So this is what it's saying here. So, for example, when we have a suffering experience, it's extremely important to straight away understand that this is something not, as it were, sort of a vindictive act by life or me, but an inevitable reality of cyclic existence. That there's no person to blame for this, that I have to accept what is happening. And that the more we can instill that mind of acceptance, the more that we can prevent that suffering from impacting on our mind by, creating that suffering mentality with regard to what we're experiencing. And indeed, when we are being able to train the mind in such a way that we not only get beyond the notion, the bubble of our own personal suffering, but we can start to think outside of that and say, what if I could accept all of the suffering of all sentient beings now? May it ripen on me now. May I take it on willingly. And that this sort of courage, or courageous attitude of really broadening the scope of what that suffering means is something that can really not only help to alleviate the physical pain of our own suffering, but actually can really start to bring a sense of happiness, even bliss, to our own mind. And so this is something that we need to understand, because we can say when we don't accept the suffering that is arising for us, we know that then can compound the mental suffering of what we think about that suffering. There's this resistance to it that creates more suffering within, and so that is counterproductive even to any recovery from that suffering. So it's very, very important that, again, to bring about this kind of really big mind thinking. May all the negative karma that all sentient beings have accumulated, may it all ripen upon me. May I be able to use this occasion of my own personal suffering to kind of really accept and take on this kind of big mind thinking on the basis of that. May all that negative karma that might have ripened for all those sentient beings, may they be relieved of all that. May all that ripen upon me now. I'm willing and able to take it on. And so one needs to kind of develop this sort of thinking. The same way as happiness, And when we have a happy experience, we recognize that, on the one hand, this is really good to recognize it comes from a virtuous cause that we have created in the past, and it's ripening now. But also recognizing that it is contaminated happiness because it's occurring within cyclic existence. And so what it immediately should impel us to do is, yes, enjoy the happiness, but to make sure to continue to create those causes, those similar causes, virtuous causes, because you know that this brings about these happy results. And so this is and also here again, there's the opportunity to expand on one's thinking with regard to happy experiences. that you dedicate your happiness for the happiness of for the happiness of liberation, the happiness of the omniscient state of enlightenment, for the happiness of all sentient beings. I dedicate my own happiness so that they may be able to experience that. And this is what is being inferred here in this verse, that when you talk about engaging in Dharma practice, and particularly in the context of a Bodhisattva, that this is the kind of thinking that is required. This is the way that we should set our minds, that when suffering arises, we immediately understand this is inevitability of one, of psychic existence, two, of the fact that I created the negative cause for this suffering to arise. So it's also a discouragement for us to engage in any negativity in the future. And when happiness arises, we also understand that this is from a virtuous cause that I created, but it also is not just this kind of necessary to be this momentary sensory thrill, but rather that we dedicate this for the happiness of all sentient beings as well. So this is very, very important to kind of say, instilling this kind of big mind thinking into our life, into our practice, makes sure that we are making the most of our human intelligence in order to being able to really understand how to most of our precious human life, of taking the essence of that straight away.
당한테 대적을 리더 타바티 란게 아니 지금 가서 지금 타와다 탐대 때문에 유튜브 투발에 배주 땅도 맞지 대적을 리더 타바티 란게 무튼의 코알 내다 아니 냐소나 게 주주 주바이나 아니 대적을 리더도 고마 줘봐 차와지 못 줘봐.
So briefly, we have this precious human rebirth of beneficial circumstances and freedoms in order to really attain the state of liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment. If we use it only to continue in cyclic existence and end up in the lower realms and so on, and then it's pointless having such a precious human rebirth.
아니 밀리 타봤잖아. 받아봤 패션 받으면 가지면 돼. 가스나 밀리 타바 지다 레냐바 냐송가 때나 사바 용가 때이네 밀루데네 신년바 레냐바 또 좀 사투고 말와. 다가니 이제 레 개와데 집어지야래. 냐송가 때나 레 개와 사바 용가 때 밀루데네 신 레 개와 또 좀 사투고 말. 가서 딜라 또 좀 사이래. 아니 가서 꼴론다 조와다 다 정말 조좀 누바제 사야 될라. 아니 밀루데네 신 용가 말와. 가서 남주 거고 도와. 그와 남주 거고 도와. 와다 되데 이마 인자 아니 밀루 말레나 가서 다 밀루 레마데 아니 배주 로컬 만도에 제게 쳐버려 와.
So saying that if we, as it were, misuse this great potential of a precious human rebirth like that only to create causes to either stay in cyclic existence or end up in the lower realms, then it's probably better that we wouldn't have a precious human rebirth at all. Better not to have, because if you're in the lower realms, of course you're in experiencing great suffering constantly. But if you're in a human existence and you have that much more potential to create powerful karmas, where you imbue each action with the motivation, the action, and the dedication that goes along with it, that then can create extremely powerful karmas. So it's kind of like saying if you waste that such tremendous potential, then it's probably better not to have a precious human rebirth, because you won't do as much harm if you're in the lower realms.
Kadamba lama rika stege in the sundu yogudu akarsa dikse setonga shos. Dikwa chimbo sa dige mito ane setondo yonga chidanda di tsewa tona magawa ni mare tsewa tona ta mi luden dela dikwa dire sawa da dikwa top chimbo shibo sa dugore jongo joso puta ko shibo sa di tsewe ongeta ane tu maso yogudu wa. 지다도 미 권하 쪽에 심지어 탐제 잡아 되고 요래 아니 되게 이래대 이래야 딱 같이 내가 그래 탑시 매견들라 내가 그래 탑시 매견들 딱 채도와 요소 와자들 요거 왔다 그래서 강가 그래서 제외 온거 용되기도 와.
And so again, I was quoting from the great Kadampa masters, some of which would say that those who were greatly negative, may they have a short life. And this might sound counterintuitive, because of these are the same great masters who, of course, are dedicating their lives completely to attaining enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. But it's out of great love that they make these prayers directed at specific people for whom there is no hope of changing. They won't change their greatly negative behavior.
Temporarily, no.
Yeah. And so there's temporarily no hope for them, and therefore they make these prayers. So rather than that person living longer and creating much more negativity that would be a huge disadvantage to them in future life, they say, may you have a short life this time, so that you don't collect too much negative karma.
Yeah. That
Okay, so again, I was saying maybe we leave the text at this point and open up for questions and questions from people if you have any questions.
I have a quick question.
Okay.
It was about when you were trying to set your intention for the benefit of all sentient beings. How it comes across as a little bit pessimistic, but how would obtaining Buddha mindset be of benefit to all sentient beings? In that way, it's still evident in this life that there's still suffering and that there's still, that there's still suffering. So even having there been someone who's reached enlightenment, there's still suffering about. So I'm wondering about how, if we're trying to reach enlightenment, how would that be more beneficial than other beings having reached enlightenment?
Yeah. And 그래서 가서 남유 가서 군농디 가서 상계 토피에기 뭐 남기도 이네 양은 상계에서는 샘션 캔버스 펭귄 펭귄에서는 상계 망보 여러 안에 자동 거발라 안에 동양 잡 그래서 타예가 여러 안에 제창 안에 가서 상계 토피냐 안에 렌더스 제제라 캔버스 빅소 상계기 툭디 이라데네 샘첸라 칸토스 동양 셀고
다 동해 세다라 타예바 저거 다 동해 세다라 내가 동해 세다 요래 타도 동해 세다 요래 다 내가 동해 세다네 다 가서래 다 가자 저게 매고글 매 칼라고글 칼라 다 대사 매글 대사 제네 다 가자 간투도게 로바지에 편도제 다 지금 용거로 왔다 용거로 왔다 배나 잡을리나 데데 로바지가 망고잖아 제가 타메와래 셰도 말에 산제도 자주 선바 주바 빠도 매버 유에는 제 셰마도 말해 다디 산제 말서 야와체도 요 말와 아니 가서 나라도 레 당보알라 낭데데 산제 임바이네 레뉴기 샤마 조지 낭게 지만나 나도 말해 딱 어디를 좀 줘보세 다들 나서지 로아다 지금 가시 암지 가시 계게 가시게 가서다 나스 아니 가시에다 저다 지금 본보다 다 지금 편도 가봐야 차 용거 요바이나甚至 편도에 나서와 좀 그래 가시 자지 우리 달라 주는 편도와 용거 요래 어다 들으셔라 이나야 다 동행게 싸워 단체 말이가 있다 뒤에뭐 다음에 또 셔라때 다 되다 아니 속에 쳐주고 도네 최대네 딱 감다 좀 최대네 아니 너무 봤을 딱 이제 편바 좀 달라 타여봐 좀 도와 타여봐 좀 도와 다 되네 야야저 데데저 다 리베 잖아 다다다 것도 나라도 나한테다 동해 빠도 매봐 나한테 그 심지어 타여봐를 가셔 Pena Nima Diri Chachana, Simja Mangochi, Diri Sangiva Yunguyore, Simja Mangochi, Diri Tukiva Yunguyore, Chanju Sun, Simja Mangochi, Yanjung Simkiva Yunguyore, but Simja Jang the Tayavarwa. Tayavar, that direction, and Richina Salam Gutava Yaya, Richina Diri, and Jakaso, that Sachuala Lene, Sachuve Netige, and Longu Mosu Chene. Longu Mosu Chene, the Wamilican, Longu Mosu Chene, and Longu Kundina Chu, and Yamba Shane, and then getting Yaval Sangia to continue Yungota, because of project the Chimbu Shujuata. What that direction, that come down to Beton and the Pemba Troops in the Chenta, Rebbe Yard to a day, it was. Tapena Larazo, Pena Satangola, Sleva Ina Pena Chachana, and it Satangola Liga Mango, Tonda, so dig down, and the data to be Simja Mango Tonda, San Yuvala, and the data come to be Simja, then a Sachuala, oh, Simja Chitana, Buddha Sachuba, Top Mango Tonda. Because of social Katana, let and go, never let and go, and they should be shot on the door. They like shot on the Yomarwa. 먼저 지금 먼저 진짜 당보를 알려서나 ABC 심마시 데레 통되게 와. 진짜 니발 알려. 야 딜레 도스 망하시게 수발레데 딜레 도스 망하시. 데네 야 진짜 가봐 주바. 아니 이게 오슬로시게. 데네 유니버시티 날레데 데네 PhD 날레게. 보다 지소로 줘 봐다. 스텝 바이 스텝.
So the answer here is to understand, one, how huge a project that is being kind of like spoken about here. Two, how limited our perception is. And three, how what's the third one? Yeah, and how kind of like widespread or limitless is the benefit that is occurring all around us anyway now. So, for example, here, one is that we know suffering so intimately, temporary suffering, and then we through our learning, talking about the ultimate suffering and so on, countless amounts of suffering, but how all kinds of suffering are being relieved all around the world, even that we can perceive through medical help, food help, through giving of housing, and every other kind of benefit. And so we also, through the limitations of our perceptions, we can't tell who and who is not a Buddha or Bodhisattva, who may be actually deeply involved in giving that kind of material help in the form of doctors, of nurses, of experts, and so on, and facilitating all of this benefit. So there's benefit going on all the time. There's Buddhas in action all the time. And that we are very much limited by our own perception into being unable to recognize what's going on. And so even wild animals can be performing as Buddhas in their own milieu, in their own kind of like setting. And so this is going on all the time, and we're already talking about one world that we're aware of. You know, there's countless world systems, countless sentient beings. So we're talking about the vastness of the project here of bringing benefit and relieving suffering. So this is just one aspect of it. And then one other very key aspect of it is that Buddhas teach the path. They teach the path. They teach specifically the root cause of suffering in cyclic existence, and especially the antidote to that, the wisdom realizing selflessness in order to benefit sentient beings, in order to overcome this root suffering. So this is another aspect of Buddha's kind of enlightened activity and skillful means, that they are engaging in actions like this all the time and giving teachings. So the benefit is endless, and that the beings that are being benefited are countless. And so, we're also in the texts, you will understand, for example, say at the 10th Bodhisattva ground, it's very high level practitioners now who can receive teachings from Buddhas in an enjoyment body aspect, and really at that point, you see, they have this ability to perceive those Buddhas giving those teachings. They have the kind of understanding to be able to assimilate teachings at that level. And so they are kind of like at a much more subtle level of development, of kind of like mental evolution. And so even at the first ground bodhisattvas, they have that the capacity to kind of a massive kind of increase in the capacity to kind of overcome the deluded obscurations, to emanate in other places, to receive teachings from many different places, and so on, and to just basically that capacity to benefit is so much more increased. And so it's a kind of you can see it's a gradual kind of mental evolution to be able to, on the one hand, perceive the benefit that is received and to engage in the benefit that is given. And that this is all kind of like we can understand only our experience kind of in harmony with where we're at. We're limited at the moment to kind of what experience we can both assimilate and engage in and understand and perceive. And so this is one aspect of it. But it's the same as pointing out, like, before we could read, for example, we had a very different perception of what we could understand. And so then we went to school, we learned our ABCs, we slowly began to read, and that opened up a whole new world for us, a whole new perception. And then going into secondary school, our understanding is deepened further and broadened further. And then into university, again, we are stretched in the way that we could understand and understand, for example, now, which would be imperceivable for us when we were very young and not able to read yet. So kind of like, using that as a comparison, you can see how far you've traveled in such a short space of time in terms of what you're able to perceive, what you're able to understand, and indeed the breadth of action that you're able to engage in. So when we talk about these kind of developments on the path into different levels of the Bodhisattva grounds and all that, and that the capacities are increased exponentially like that. So this is the way in which Buddhas are manifest in the world, and how useful it is to have that level of mental development, because you have that much more capacity to benefit.
我这个，可是我说，俺都来当过给这个来当过看不到什么都同样要么的，三届一般那个都来当过通过的嘛，都三届个那在上部送就到那边界上部了是吧？那全国在云南国内浪多也过来要么的，本来三届中的我就对的了，偏为一呢，我就三届中的全国在云南国内那个地方我考不下来，考不，可是呢，说说个那来个这边是全部有嘛，就是说来的他妈那个的的。
Fixated.
So let too much language. What are the neighbors? What are what the natural? That social layer, Chita, Sunday, and the and the castle the Tilapabe, and the castle the Sunday, you there should chat now to it.
So, in brief, that the difficulties that we have are due to our limitations, due to our own karmic obscurations, that we can't see all of what's going on around us. We can't perceive or understand it all because of our karmic obscurations, such that even if a fully enlightened Buddha were to appear right in front of us, due to our own karmic obscurations, we wouldn't be able to perceive the Buddha there. we wouldn't be able to understand that at all. And so this is why, we are in the process of trying to dispel, eradicate, purify all these karmic obscurations so that we can open up our minds to being able to perceive more and more and to be able to assimilate more and more broader experience.
This Sunday Pasha, the mother that the Tobago had this was not to remember. Tobel had this Chita, because Lenu Shawache, Ira Yapot, so many Hajak Chibu Imaisa. Marab Duel and the chicken chicken, the Tobel had the Nagama. And Sugaman Dikanakawa, cousin was something which he made a cover now to it. Sheva Rakwa to the party, Sheva Tamogi, and then that chata today, and the Sheva Tamo, and it went to you to it, and you're there, taught what the Koma to get down to it over the one. Then I share you take it as a wood.
So, that the more then we can access the more subtle levels of consciousness, the more we would be able to see and understand the great qualities of enlightenment, that we are hampered because of the coarseness of our consciousness at the moment, such that, even looking to being able to perceive desire realm celestial beings, they are in the desire realm like we are, but we don't have it creates tremendous merit to attain such a life, but we can't perceive them. We are that obscured in our own consciousness that we can't perceive them. So we can't even perceive therefore anybody in the form realm or the formless realm. So no need to expect that we can perceive an enlightened being or even to understand directly the actions of an enlightened being. So that's the way it is. We are kind of shackled by the coarseness of our consciousness, the obscurations, the karmic obscurations on our mind stream, and that as we clear those obscurations, as we access more subtle consciousnesses, then we will have a clearer, more comprehensive, and more definitive understanding of the qualities of enlightenment.
Tele imza kasa chue maso tele kasa chue sungo mares an tele imba inza an geva sagre tele imba inza an kasa sula ine kuba chigure an kyuchi jomara khata ta tele neso kasa ngozo chue sungo meza de sungo yorwa.
And so that's why that we are advised to make no distinction between persons on any basis, because we don't know what their minds are. And that we need to then just take, it's always safest to adopt a position of absolute respect and appreciation for all sentient beings. That's why we're kind of like a training like this. That's why we make these aspirational prayers to benefit all sentient beings without exception.
Yeah. Is
that okay? Is that helpful?
I just have a general question, Noel.
Right, that's John, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. How does this text differ from Langri Tangpa's 7 verses on mind training? Just a very general question.
Kusudi Lalan Soptun di Tang and Tikema Kandra Shagar.
다 지다 저다 건강한 상태가 되게 된다 가라리 타면은 상태 라리 타면은 뒤도다 거 상태 거다 거기 색배주 땅다 또또 민다고 다 용거리면 또 도다 거 상태로
So you're saying
라리 타배게 되나라로 그래서 남존 남존다 제는 쏜 것도 지나래 남존 남존다 제는 쏜 것도 다 데려와 이게 좀 자세히 양되면 또 들려
So, and really, there isn't any difference at all, really, in the meaning. The essential kind of point of both texts is exactly the same. That they both kind of deal with the 3 principal paths, how to generate renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness. and that the kind of aim import are the same. It's only the way the words are put together that there is some difference.
So
again, I'm saying, yeah, so Langmi Tangpo's text is fewer words. There's a few more words in this one.
and share party chimba to 이게 share 닝보 따보이나 아니 가서 쇼라가 니시장아래 아니 다다디 가서 개동바이나 개동 쇼라가 개동아래 아니 되네 봄 용거도 와 가서 저장가 찍고 지자로 아니 시대 이게 찍마 이게 다가라나라 가서 셔가 버리 좀 지날 이게 농수 들어와다 이게 싫어 그러고 각자 까sam기 각자 까니 아니 될때 좀 아주 거두고 열었다 그래 레다 도다 그거 찍고 레고와.
So again, I'm saying, for example, if you look at the Prajnaparamita sutras, that whole body of work, the Perfection of Wisdom sutras, you have sutras of varying lengths included in that canon, such as the Har Sutra that we know. There's also the Sutra of 25 verses, the Sutra of 8,000 verses, the two Sutra of 100,000 verses. 25,000, sorry, not 25, 25,000 and 100,000 verses. And then you have the most brief Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, which consists of the syllable A. That's all. That's for the very, very intelligent people, apparently, that once you just have to hear that syllable A, and then you understand that the mere negation of the object of negation confirms the lack of true existence and dependent origination. And so the meaning in all of these, from the single syllable right up to 100,000 verses, is the same. It's just a question of how extensively it is disseminated.
이네 딱 가리어서는 딱 냠래 버스서 다들 다들 라레 소데마나 아니 다들 게서 토메게 아니 자주쌤 냠래 제도 다 콩기 코레게 딱 가서 지금 삼로 때데 토네 아니 냠래 난게 여사야 디 질랍제 용거와 안 다들 랑리 탕박이야 디 토네 냠래나 디 질랍제 용거와 그거 네가 냠래 바데 냠래 버쳐버려 아니 디 토네 질랍 삼로 땅다 질랍제 용거와.
So what can be spoken about also is, of course, the value of studying all of these texts, and particularly in the context of the mind training texts that you mentioned, the 8 verses of mind transformation by Geshe Langmi Tangpa, and of course this 37 practices of a Bodhisattva by the child of the conqueror, Tokme Zangpo, is that these texts are coming to us with the blessing of these great practitioners. And they were both recognized in their own time and since then as being really wonderful practitioners. So they really are, their texts then have that extra blessing, that extra significance to them. And so we can connect with that blessing through our study of these texts.
But
otherwise, there's no essential difference between them. They're not espousing any kind of different view or method. Is that okay?
Yep, perfectly fine. Thank you.
That's all.
Yeah, that do I enough? Do I remember the Tindo? That rang that beautiful Lama Chedesi and set up Lama Chedesi, Tagara Media, Tugala, Taotochi. Yuba, or Manipemo home quarter. And Tagara la Mine, or Manipemo Chagochi Sashua.
So then, if there are no more questions, let's bring our minds to focus on the figure of Chinrezig on our crown, and at the heart center of that with the moon disk on which sits the 5-pronged white vajra surrounded by the Om Mani Padme Hum mantra, marked by the hum. And let's recite a mala of Om Mani Padme Hum mantras.
Rangi Tagoda Magasimja Tamja Yu, so what are the letter and Lama Jenis Tugala and Tawa Toji, and Omani Belgajela, we said to the Randa Rangi Tagoda, Simja Tamjeg, Tugala, Tawa Toji Zanga, but Omani Pema was called, and Dilama, we said Tim. But that Omani Pema part of never trained Tim, and it bet jingle up to something, and it Narazu to get Janju Samajeva, Ken upon the Tony Tobi Shara Majeva, Ken upon the Peva. What did you what the conversation?
So as we recite the mantras too, we are cognizant of all kind mother sentient beings all around us still. They also have at their heart center the white moon disk with the white 5-pronged vajra with the Mani Padme Hum mantra surrounding it, and that marked by the syllable hung as well. And as the mantra is recited, that light rays emanate from the Chenrezig on our crown and goes dissolving into us and all other sentient beings, such that we are all endowed with the capacity to generate the mind of enlightenment and the view of emptiness that we have not yet generated, and that to the extent that we have generated the mind of enlightenment and the view of wisdom, that is going to increase and flourish and deepen.
Chadongolo, you are Gavo, the General Gavas of the Sajado Kala, the Dilla Duma Tumba Jeres, and a Chazalo,
Mani Padme Hum, 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 Rani the Pamata Jechla Juso, some such water commercial, Yenjo, some Yenjo, and it because Rani the Pamata Jechla Juso, some such a Chajuka Semto, some but Tonito we share of some time. The day Sanjay Komatu Nati Kabato said to money, but Takara Semto T, and in making watch the Juso, some such. That did and some Tamde or Sanjay Komamato Taman, some to be some sumption. You want the troop to be shown some time, and the day the same day, and the Tawaking watch like Juso, some such. Then, but it's a Lama watcher. And it Ninga Pimacha, Kadichimo, Kuzo to your Sunday Channel, Rangi Chibo, Lama Cheres, Chibonama, Chen, Rangi Ninga Catolania, some such. And Tamil pet Nivos, similar attention, Sanjay Kumamato, which is Tayashi, and then what is a Pamatic Mark Hatsum, and Rangi Ningas and the Tigan Project of Zanga with a Katia. And I'm going to say that all money payment was quite it is some cottage. Then and a quarter Chigotilla, and it Omara was a nati did the cottage. Then over yet I'm here to Tawa and Tata my shaman is what there's not cottage. And it in and the Lama Cheres Kule, Kuzonto, we said, Chivone, can't take all we said Chovalatana, Tomame by the Tiba. Lunga so developed to a pasha, so then that's our long tilly. And that church will get just so much about the Kari, but the my short. What did the commercial? So then, so now we begin the conclusion of bringing our mind to bear on the figure of Chenrezig on our crown, seated on that lotus sun and moon disk mandala seed. And then we establish that lotus sun and moon disc mandala seed on our own heart, at our own heart center here. And as we normally do, we meditate on renunciation, really feeling the cyclic existence in the nature of suffering and wanting to attain definite emergence from that. And from that then emanates the lotus disc mandala, and then reflecting on the kind of where the eye is located, looking into the body and mind, going through the meditation to the point of really negating the very kind of object of negation, the mere negation of that, and from that voidness arising the sun disc mandala. And then the aspiration we have to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, and wanting to really kind of feel the absolute necessity of the state of attaining that state. I must attain that state of enlightenment to benefit of all sentient beings, and from that bodhicitta motivation, the moon disc mandala state is established. So we have the seed prepared, and now we make the invocation for Chenrezig to come. O glorious and precious new Guru, come take your lotus and moon seed placed here at my heart. Keep me safe in your kindness. Bestow on me the attainment of body, speech, and mind. And at the end of that first recitation, the figure moves down through our central channel from our crown chakra. At the end of the second, arrives at the seat that we have prepared, and at the end of the third, really established there steadfastly until we ourselves attain enlightenment. And we really feel very pleased at this. And then the petals of the lotus fold over the figure of Chenrezig, sealed at the tip by a white five-pronged Vajra, and then surrounded this time with the Om Mani Padme Hum mantra in a clockwise direction, the Om Arapat D mantra of Manjushri in an anti-clockwise direction, and the mantra of dependent origination again in a clockwise direction. So sealed thus, then light rays begin to emanate and permeate through the petals up through the crown of our head, down through the soles of our feet, eradicating all negativities and obscurations that we have accumulated since the beginning of this time, and eradicating also any kind of obstacle to our being able to realize the mind of enlightenment and the direct realization of emptiness, and also any kind of illness or anything that is unwell within the body is purified and eradicated. The four elements are regulated and evened. The channels, winds, and drops are purified of any stain, and we are also relieved of that debilitating ordinary view, and we gain a pure view with regard to all of our surroundings. And that, yes.
And rangi shindo tawa lungdi nyelenge chana lama chera siga kude lenji chigana sozo luda lama chera siga kulu chususi rangi shindo tawa semdi nyele lama chera siga tuda lenji chigana chana sozo semdi lama shaja siga tula chusu rangi lunga yiso lama shaja siga kusu lama chera siga kusu tongo yeme chusu samsa ane nediya ane chera siga shaya khala chusu samsa chao ta yawa shivu chusu semdi tamde dodo ane chera siga koma topsu so kawa kop.
Then through the combination of my own more subtle will with the body of Chenrezig, my own body is transformed into the enlightened body of a Buddha. And then through the combination of my own more subtle mind acting as the substantial cause, together with the mind of Chenrezig acting as the cooperative conditions, my own mind is now transformed into the enlightened mind of Chenrezig. And now I see my own body, speech, and mind as indivisible from the body, speech, and mind of Chenrezig, of an enlightened Buddha. Again, I rejoice in this. This is something really wonderful. And now the place that I am in is also transformed into the celestial abode of an enlightened being. And I come to that beautiful recognition that in the purpose of wanting to fulfill the goal of benefiting all sentient beings, I have attained that state of enlightenment, which is now capable of doing that.
Ta ra lama chera siga kulu tuwa tugale ane semje da tanda nyamo wese tuwa la tene wese deda tanja ane semje soso la timba la tene deda tanja ja 안에 라마제레스 구조도 뭐에 맞지 내대다 단자자 라마제레스게 아니 가수다 시작한도 교수 섬사자 다 간자 심제 탐제 내 사제 가서 라마제레스 공부를 거봐 대 주에 수수 개와 대 소소의 자와 유대는 마셔 동가 파다 잡는 대 대화제 대 동바 대도니스메 시켜서 섬사자.
And then through the seeing ourselves as the fully enlightened Guru, Chenrezig Buddha, we send out countless rays of light equal in number to all of the beings in all of the 6 realms of existence. As these lights dissolve into them, they automatically arise as a fully enlightened Guru, Chenrezig Buddhas themselves, and the places in which they are transformed from what they are into the celestial abode of the enlightened realm of Chenrezig. And again, I rejoice that, how wonderful this is. I've been able to fulfill the goal of leading all sentient beings to enlightenment. And this is wonderful. And then from that generates the bliss. The bliss invokes this voidness, and I abide in the wisdom of non-dual bliss and voidness.
that because of the day cheto that jamni janju ko toni to shira ma ta yong ko ram ba tende yima yinza ta ragi because of the nyena drona sana tuna kibu juna ta tungne juna ta ani successful in that successful mother kai khaba me to dige ganga janju ko toni to shira ki gyuru juwa sho gyuru ju to ta gi jigi teda jenno ba sho jenno ba lama jena se ge jingle lam to so ta de tamja sha jem jet get more.
And that, of course, we recognize that we're operating here very much at the level of imagination, but we make a powerful dedication that I will do whatever is necessary to quickly make this a reality. This is what I must do. And to do that, I make this pledge that, in order to develop the requisite perfection of love and compassion, the mind of enlightenment, the correct view of emptiness, etc., I will do whatever it takes, use whatever arises in my life to turn it into a cause to generate this state of enlightenment. So whatever happiness, whatever suffering, whatever success, failure is, I'm going to be able to skillfully direct it towards spiritual practice, laying down the requisite causes to bring about these results. And I make this as a pledge.
Olaf, and the one Ma kya pa na ma kya juro cha kya pa nya ma me wa to ne ta wa re ho cha ma kya pa
Nam ki
juro cha kya pa
nyam pa
me wa ya ko ne ko me
King Kam Du Panda Chen Re Zi Guang